coordinator. Then the protocol coordinator will quickly step in again with his opening remark that will give room for me to usher in the moderator of the day, who will in turn coordinate with the presenter. After which we take our Q&A section, and then we'll have our sponsors remark before the announcement of the day. That is how we're going to quickly run for today's technical meeting. So I urge each and every one of us to pay apt attention, because it's definitely going to be a very good presentation that will be very beneficial to all of us. Our sponsors and the presenter is already here, and they are standing by to give us a wealth of their knowledge on how the subject matter will be very beneficial to us. So thank you very much as we listen to be part of today's presentation. So without much ado, I'd like to call on the protocol chapter to quickly give us its own welcome and mention of key corporate recognition of some dignitaries in our midst. Thank you very much, sir. If you can hear me, my coordinator, sir. Confirm you can hear me?
Yes, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction and pulling us through what we're going to walk through this afternoon. And to say a warm welcome to everyone. And my job is pretty much done by the GS who introduced this meeting today. And to thank you for joining. This is an expression of your passion for knowledge, to network, interact. I will have an occasion to speak a bit more on that. And so without much ado, I'd just like to recognize corporate members who are joined here today. We have, of course, TotalEnergies, who happen to be our sponsors for today. We deeply appreciate you here. Also, Shell is here. Shell Nigeria is also fully here. We know that there are people, members of the academia, who are here. We know that there are professionals, industry professionals who are here. Can I request, please, because we don't have a log of who has joined, if you would use the chat room and kindly type your affiliation, that will help us to properly recognize you. But know that from our heart, we deeply appreciate you making time, today to be part of this knowledge sharing moment, and also fostering the progress that NAPI stands for in the space of geoscience in this part of Nigeria and the globe. So I want to leave it there and then pass back the microphone to you, GS. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, my able coordinator. While we await the login log of the corporate members for proper recognitions and special individuals and corporate members who are joining, we will quickly move over to, starting the technical meeting proper with an opening prayer by Miss Augustina, if she's online. Please confirm you can hear me, Miss Augustina.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, sir, and good morning, everybody.
All right, please go ahead and help us and kickstart the meeting with the opening prayer. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Shall we pray? In Jesus' name, Father, we glorify your name. We thank you for today. We thank you for this wonderful opportunity. We ask, O Lord, for your grace. We ask for your mercy for the success of this technical meeting. We pray, O Lord, that our gathering here online will not be in vain, but for your glory. We pray that you will impact in us, O Lord, the knowledge that we need, that will take us far in life and in the future. We pray, O Lord, that you open our understanding to understand all that will be discussed today, to the glory of your holy name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Augustina, for that wonderful opening prayer. With that, we have properly started the technical meeting today. Without much ado, I'd like to call the safety coordinator for the safety moment. Mr. Adeleke, are you there? Please confirm you're online. Femi Adeleke, are you there? Okay, but we can't hear you. I can see your typing, but are you muted? I'm not sure I can hear you. Am I the only one? Can anybody confirm he or she can hear him?
No,
I am hearing. Can't hear him. No.
I am hearing.
Oh, he's saying he needs to be made. He needs to be made admin.
I can hear you.
Femi, are you the one saying you can hear me?
You can speak now. I've allowed you to speak. You can speak now.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. I thought I'll be allowed to share the slide, but okay. Probably just go on from here.
I'm sure you can. I don't know.
Okay, you
no, he will have been made a host before now. So
Today we have to give you the permission to share.
So just go ahead and speak.
Yeah. I've done that, so you can go ahead.
Oh, so Femi, you can share now. He has already updated your stuff.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Okay, today we'll probably, to start our monthly session, we'll just talk about emergency preparedness. Well, emergencies, like I say, don't tell you when they will happen. Accident is sudden, unexpected. And most times the results are always very catastrophic, dangerous, and if something is not done immediately, lives will be lost, damage properties, damage to the environment. And it can be from natural events. It can be from maybe you have medical crisis, security threats, equipment failing, and then many other things. There might be things most times out of our control. Example of emergencies that we can face are maybe there's a flood, especially talking about our environment here, flood, wildfire, breakout, natural disasters. It is key that we plan and are ready. Most times we sit back and put everything in God's hands. But as professionals today, we're advising that we take time out of our busy schedule. I know trying to make the Benjamins can be very, very hectic. We have limited time to rest, but it's essential that we find time to make plans. Let's say, for example, I'll give you my own personal experience. Sometimes past, I had my baby, and few weeks into us being at home, the baby was being bathed, and the baby was, water entered the baby's nose, and was choking, and it was dying, was going cold. My wife said, oh, look at the child, and oh, child is dying. I'm like, oh, what do we do? So I applied basic first aid. I gave the child back to my wife. I was like, oh, no, this child is not okay. He's still suffocating. Look at him. It's getting colder by the minute. I continued my basic first aid, and eventually we said, okay, let's go to the hospital. Going on the road, I see that the traffic is, I see that the road is jammed, and we have 45 minutes to get to the hospital. And the road is jammed. That means maybe more. Like, am I going to lose my child like this? But I continued, and eventually we went to a pharmacy and told us, oh, the baby is now okay. And I remember, though, before I left the house, I saw water come out of the baby's nose, and I believe that was where the miracle occurred. So emergencies happen. How prepared are we? You make the money, you are not ready. Your family is not prepared. Your workforce is not prepared. When they happened, they get us all overwhelmed, and we don't know what to do. When you prepare, you plan, you execute, you implement, we can ensure that when these emergencies happen, we can mitigate them. So what are the kind of emergencies we can plan for? Heart attacks. stroke. So if it happens, severe injury, somebody's bleeding around you in your workforce, in your house, you know the basic first aid to apply? Do you know the steps to take the chain of command? Do you know who to call? Do you know how you can evacuate the person to the nearest hospital? So these are things we should look at as professionals, because most times, because of our work schedule, it's easy for someone to get a heart attack. Sometimes our lifestyle, you sit down on your computer for a long time and you're not exercising, you're stressed. We have to look at this. Also, if it's a chemical spill, there's an explosion, there's a structural failure. We heard about the building that collapsed in Lagos, the hospital that collapsed, and the doctor was trapped, and it took them hours to say, okay, how can they evacuate the doctor? Eventually, the doctor died. You see on the press when it's okay, the MD of this company died from heart attack, the social secretary in this company. These are emergencies. How do we prepare for them? Even act of terrorism, active shooting, civil unrest. The nation is, we can say, in a state of, will I say, stability, but there's some also room for instability around. How do we prepare for that? Criminal events are happening everywhere. What's our plan? So these are things that we should look at. We know we're just coming from the COVID, and to be frantic is still there. There are people that are still giving results of, okay, they came from abroad, they're in the country, and they come in with COVID. So how are we managing that? What are our plans? So having the emergency response plan, developing it, implementing it, trying it out, identifying gaps goes a long way in ensuring that we effectively minimize the impact that these emergencies can bring and what to do at the end of their occurrence. I mean, that is how we get back our businesses. So we have to plan. You have to have the emergency response team. You have to establish the communication plan. If something happens in the house, you're not there, and your children are there, who do they call first? How do they call? If they are there, who do they call? Do they have to call the estate security before calling you? Do they have to call? Do they have numbers that they call for emergencies? Is it the HMO number? So those are the things that we have to put in place. Know what to do and practice drills. Get people trained. So what does it do for us and also for our staff and at home? We have this mindset of, oh, we are safe. That picture, that belief comes to our mind. We're able to respond efficiently. I give an example of that. My child, when my child was like getting cold and life was leaving him gradually, my wife was just praying and speaking in tongues. And I'm not saying that is bad, but she was short of, she didn't know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, what happens? You are losing. And I tell people, that's why we all went to school to learn. That's why for the geoscience sector, we go to school to study geology, study the earth, study how to understand what's happening on the ground. So, and how to maximize removing our hydrocarbon that we've discovered under natural resources. So this is key. Also helps us to mitigate risk and reduce the impact, the potential damage. Also, panic is not there, because when it happens, you know, okay, this is what I have to do. So you don't have to panic. You just go ahead and implement, because you've been doing drills, you've undergone training, you understand what to do, you know what to do at the time. If you're going to do CPR, if you're going to do first aid, the chain of command in the organization, everything is well clear. Who is going to be communicating with the public in this regard? Who is going to be communicating with the government regulation agencies? This is clear. What are we going to be documented? Who is going to document it? How do we ensure that this does not throw us out and expose our brand and tarnish us? So these are things that we'll plan. How do we comply with the legal and regulatory requirements? We are done with that. We understand how to do that. And also improve our resilience as a people, as an organization. We save costs, and it's easy for our business to return. So there's seamless business continuity. Employee and our staff, our family have this confidence and trust that, yes, if this thing happens, I know what to do. If this person is bleeding, I know what to do. I remember the story of Damola Taylor in the UK that was stabbed and he bled to death. Let's imagine the boy was trained by the parents or the school on how to manage bleeding. He will still be surviving now. So these are things we have to look at as we ensure we achieve and grow our society and ensure our business too keeps achieving the sustainable growth we seek. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Femi Adeleke, for that wonderful insights on the things that we need to do whenever we have issues of emergency. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been provoked by those thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank
Not
you, sir.
surprising because you're always the helpful whenever we reached out.
Thank you, sir.
It gladdens our hearts to know that you're always there to alert the NAPI community on the need to, stay up to date with issues of safety. Very much thank you once again for coming through. We sincerely and do appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the great opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. On that note, we will quickly like to give the floor to the Port Harcourt chapter to take it over from there with his opening remark, after which we usher in the moderator, who we, take the technical section alongside with the presenter. Thank you very much. My presenter, if you're there, the floor is open for you. Thank you, sir.
Excellent one, GS. Thank you very much. And let me, echo your appreciation to Dr. Adeleke. Thank you for taking us through that safety moment. Very elaborate, very comprehensive, and with pertinent issues that everybody needs to have at their fingertips, and that could make the difference between a fatality and a life saved. Thank you very much for also responding to us, even at short notice. Taking it up from there, before I progress, I'd like to express my appreciation. Again, I'm particularly pleased with the number of corporate members who have connected, and the list keeps growing. Again, like I began to mention, we have TotalEnergies. We have people from both, of course, the industry, the academia, and allied industries. We have TotalEnergies. We have University of Port Harcourt. We have Shell. We have LOG Engineering Consultants. We have people from NAOC. We have River State University. We have IFDC and Venn Petroleum. We have La Terena connected. We have University of Uyo, amazing stuff. My colleagues over there, people from NAPE United Kingdom chapter, thank you for coming through. We have also people from OOU University. We have people from Niger Delta University. Wow, and the list keeps growing. Thank you very, very much for connecting. That shows that we are one in spirit, because we are all hungry for knowledge, especially for the pertinent topic we are going to be treating today. But just first things first, amongst the appreciation, we know what NAPE stands for. If you missed the introduction, recording and play a video play out which the technical crew played, that I can't put it better, and I'm telling you I cannot put it better, but to say that at NAPE our ideas help find oil and gas, but we know we are moving from oil and gas conventional to actually the energy discussion, and that's why everything we are talking about is what pushes further the conversation and discussion on energy and energy transition, especially as it affects an emerging economy like Nigeria. Our discussion, whatever we do, from sharing knowledge to actually seeing how can we affect policies within the government, and then also directing the industry the way the industry should go. So this confluence, this collaboration happening between us, the industry, the academia, and every stakeholder in that space is something that we need to continue to foster. Now, concerning this particular October technical and business meeting, we had so much desire to have it as a hybrid event, both physical and virtual, to accommodate as many people. We love to also see people face to face, hug, put face to the names that we see, bonding better, fostering friendship, fostering camaraderie across the length and breadth of the stakeholdership. However, last minute, because of the impending, an NLC TUC strike, which never materialized, but already that announcement, that fear, that risk already affected the planning in terms of travel arrangement for our speaker, who is based in Lagos. And so that's why we quickly, moved to virtual only scenario. We hope that this doesn't disenfranchise a couple of persons who may have wanted to be here, but to say, yeah, by and large, I think I'm particularly pleased with the number. As you see, 4 participants. Is that for us? I'm getting feedback. Is that for us? Or okay. So it's growing, and then I'm hoping that we'll be able to hit 100 by the time we are done today. So is very pertinent, the information we are going to share today. The topic, I'm not introducing okay, let me stop that because I'm not supposed to introduce the speaker. So welcome, sit back, relax, and also if you might give us an additional information, whether you are an active member of NAPE or you intend to join, but either student level or professional level, please indicate. We can take the information and then help support you to get fully, regularized in terms of your membership. And it's just a paltry, it's just a token, to get connected for 1 year to NAPE. As a student membership level, it's just 2,000 Naira per annum. And at a professional level, it's just 12,000 Naira, which is, just a peanut to be part of this, formidable association. And I welcome you with that. Let me not take much of the time, and then let's progress to the meat of today's meeting. Thank you and much welcome to everyone. Back to you, GS.
All right, thank you very much, my passionate coordinator. I can imagine the energy is always very, 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 very. I mean, it's always something to tap into. I know if you're given the opportunity, you want to, as usual, drive us with the positivity in you. We are no doubt that we have a capable coordinator who is really able and ready anytime, any day to drive the chapter to number 1 as expected. Thank you very much, my coordinator, for that wonderful opening remark. So without much ado, I'd like to quickly introduce the moderator of the day, who happens to be one of us, not just one of us, a very influential one for that matter, somebody who has a history of volunteering. I'm talking no other person than Associate Professor Sopolabo A. Adekunle, who currently is the Dean, School of Science, Laboratory Technology, University of Harcourt, and he happens to be our own editor-in-chief of NAPE, who in his own capacity has formerly handled the public secretary of NAPE, Port Harcourt chapter. We know that he was one time former Dean of Student Affairs, University of Port Harcourt as well. Of course, his academic strength is not in doubt, as he has over 35 publications in international journals. Luckily for us, he is occupying the office of the SAH, the Commissioner of Science and Technology, of which he has been very influential in the policies and directions of that commission. A Rotarian brother who volunteering and always volunteering in terms of helping out for humanity. As we know, he's happily married with children. Please, let's make welcome Associate Professor Sopolabi Adekunle as the moderator of the day. Associate Prof, if you're there, please indicate and take it up from there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Confirm you can hear me. I hope I'm being heard. Hello?
Yes, you can be heard. And I'm sure Associate Prof can hear you too. So
hello,
if you're talking,
can you hear me now?
unmute. Loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. You're on that. Thank you very much, Associate Prof, for coming in to help us with the
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take it up from here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And I want to especially welcome you to this webinar that's currently on. And we have a very strong, a nice topic we are going to have today. And the topic is deformation timing and structural geometries, implication for trapping and overpressure in deep offshore Niger Delta. This will be presented by no other person than a specialist in structural geology, with TotalEnergies EP, who has gotten over 20 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. He has been a team lead for some scientific and industrial geology projects on earthquake geology, fault mechanism. He has also completed a lot of field mapping in different basins in Italy, Albania, Bulgaria, Bolivia, Colombia, as well as France. He has served as an external consultant on carbonate fractured reservoir characterization project, which is a big job with Statoil, now Equinor. Our presenter, who is also a PhD holder, has served as a reviewer for several international geological journals, which I'm aware of, is no other person than Dr. Vincenzo Spina, a structural geology with TotalEMP. So please let's welcome him as I call upon Dr. Spina to kindly unmute and join.
Yes. I can hear
Dr.
you.
Spina,
Thanks.
how are you? How are
Fine,
you doing?
thanks. I'm fine,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
So the floor is yours for now to do your presentation.
It's okay, thanks. I was supposed to come to Harcourt, but as mentioned, the strike affected a little bit the plan of everybody. So thanks for attending the meeting in a remote session, and I hope you will. You can enjoy, and then maybe we can share and discuss our view.
You're welcome. So go ahead with your presentation, Dr. Spina.
Just a second. I'm trying to share the screen.
Please, all participants, if you have any question, you can kindly jot it down. At the end of the day, we have our Q&A section.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
Go full slide. Go for slide presentation, yeah.
1 second, please. Stop share.
Okay, that's okay.
Maybe this.
The screen.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sunday, maybe you can share it on one screen. So you might need to go to the slideshow and then select the option to share on one screen. That way it shows on the same screen. I guess it's showing on your second screen. So you're on your slideshow, you can click show on the same screen.
Thanks, Dr. Momodu.
Thank you.
So as we await his presentation, please let's just.
Okay, should be okay now. It's okay now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe it's coming.
No, can you click on it again? All right, it's coming.
Okay, yeah, it's okay now, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's
Okay now.
Okay. Non prevede tout ça? No. Okay.
So the floor is yours, Spina.
Sorry?
You can go ahead now and do your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So let's go a little bit quickly. In this presentation, we go through a quick introduction, and then we discuss about the main tectonic elements of the delta. And we will see how the interpretation, the structural interpretation of the basin has evolved via seismic interpretation exercises and examples through the time. So we try to see how people evolved in their interpretation, in the force interpretation in the tectonic styles, because we will see that with the time, the role of the Akata shales become more and more important in describing and affecting the deformation and the formation of the structures that are targeted by the exploration through those years. So we will describe the main structural features of a key area, which is the area where TotalEnergies has more interest. Namely the OML 130 blocks in the deep offshore domain of the Niger Delta. We will discuss the timing of the deformation, the style. So we will discuss how faults and fault are related or not. And we will see some geological analog of how complex can be the deformation in a completely different geological setting, but describing how ductile formation embedding some rigid units can mimic the deformation of what we observe in the Niger Delta. And then we will discuss some regional implication for trapping and hydrocarbon exploration before going to the conclusion and maybe some questions, right? Okay, so that is a simplified video that I got from HQ, from Total proprietary study. We are going to focus in the Niger Delta, which is located here. The Niger Delta configured at the termination of the aborted rift, which is the Benue Rift, which is here, oriented northeast-southwest. So during the opening of the South Atlantic domain, you can see that you have a different timing of opening with the formation of oceanic crust of different age, which is offset and affected by a series of fault zones that you can see also in the Google Map image here, which are the Harcourt, the chain fault zones. So those are fracture zone, crustal in terms of importance that stepped the bottom sea, and also the base of the basement of the Niger Delta infield. So the basement of the Niger Delta infield, which is characterized by oceanic rock, is stepped, so has a morphology, a structural morphology controlled by those transversal fault zones. And those features control the sediment, the accumulation of the Akata shales, and then their orientation, their spacing, and their frequency controls also the segmentation of the structures that are shallower, as we can see in a short time. On a general basis, what we observe in all the historical seismic line that we have across the entire basin, the entire Niger Delta, and also with the GXT, is that we have globally extension in the shallow offshore and even on land, and extension, and compression at the toe of the system. So we have this kind of difference in terms of structural style. So extension in the interland and compression in the foreland. And since the Niger Delta is classically considered as a spreading cell, gravity cell with extension in the interland and compression at the foreland, classically the interpreters tried to find solution, geometrical solution to balance the interland extension with the rate of compression at the foreland. But in fact, if we observe a little bit what kind of mechanism can control this kind of coupled and apparently antithetic structural style at the scale of the delta, we have globally two end members and a mixed model. So we can have extension and compression in a gravity gliding, which is simplified in the top right slide here. So in the gravity gliding model, we have a detachment which is dipping towards the deep offshore, I would say. This dipping is, we don't need a huge dipping angle for this detachment. We should have even 1-2 degrees of dip. The efficiency of these detachments control the fact that if we have huge sedimentation above these ductile units in which the detachment is configured, we have extension and collapse in the interval and compression at the toe. And so we have those two domains, extension and compression, and in the middle we have a domain which is translational, in which we don't have no extension nor compression, but just translation parallel to the detachment level, which is at the base of the system. However, this doesn't assume a thickness of the ductile layer. So namely the Akata shale, which is in this zone. If we introduce the fact that the Akata shale is considered as a thick member with ductile behavior, and if we introduce also a sedimentation rate which is quite high, we have another end member model, which is the gravity spreading. In this model, you don't need to have a dipping detachment. You can have also a flat detachment. The simple fact that you have a huge sedimentation rate and pressure gradient from the depot centers to maybe the mud diapirs and the mud pipes that you can have in some place within the basin, or even if you have faults, the faults can play as a conduct and pressure dissipation conduct. So if you have this pressure gradient, the fact that you have this pressure dissipation gradient makes the system starting working as in the previous example. So you can have huge depot centers where the pressure is high, and the pressure is dissipated via the diapirs and the mud pipes, and at the toe of the system you can have compression. But you will see in the seismic line that we will see after, those two members are valid, but usually what we have in the Niger Delta is a mix of the two. So what we have what we call the mixed gravity gliding, with the extension again at the interval and the compression at the toe of the system. And this compression is more and more, people consider that this compression is more and more related to mud walls and shales highs than pure compression. So in order to justify the fact that you have compression and extension at the same time, because this is geologically at the same time from a geological point of view. In the past, we did a lot of modelization, sandbox modeling, in order to image how the system could evolve through the time. So that is just an example from Total. In this example, in the top one, you have ductile materials, or silicon, which approximate the behavior of the ductile behavior of the Akata shales, and then we have the accumulation of what we call A, so the sedimentation that simulate the sedimentation in the delta. So also we have this because the weight of the sediment and the ductile behavior of the Akata shales. You have the formation of extension, so an extensional cell like we have in the top right part of the slide, and at the toe of the system, the compressional structures. And if we, at this stage, if we add additional sedimentation, so if we assume that the system evolves through the time, so we add other sands, you see that we create a new delta front, the B1, and you see that the previous extensional faults, which are here, are not longer active, and the active part of the extension migrates towards the frontal part of the system. So the frontal, the extensional point, the active extensional front is here now. Before it was more in the interval, and also accordingly, the compressional front itself migrates in the most external part. So those two end members were used to justify how, in case of quick sedimentation rate and thick sediments accumulation, the system migrates through the time. So we will focus on what we call the fault and thrust belt at the deep offshore domain of the Niger Delta, as I told you, because we have more seismic data in this area. From the fault and thrust belt, please don't consider this term as an assumption that we are dealing with the system like the Andes, the Apennines, the Carpathian, the Urals, and the Himalaya. Because those fault and thrust belts are really related to regional compression and compressional setting, regional speed. In our case, the deep offshore fault and thrust belt in the Niger Delta is more related to in-situ speed. So it's a local compression that accumulates in a specific area due to an extensional spreading, which depicts the regional tectonic set. However, we talk about fault and thrust belt because we have fault as associated with thrust. So in this domain, we see the geometries that we can recognize, and globally speaking, we all know that we deal with a thick pile of sedimentary infill that characterize the Niger Delta. So we have something like 12 kilometers of basin infill overlying the possibly synerogenic Cretaceous domain and oceanic rocks, as I told you before. Okay, and the Akata shale, which is the ductile units that is overlying directly the basement, has a thickness that is not homogeneous, is variable, is variable between 2,000 meters in the about 2,000 meters in the deep offshore and about 7,000 meters in the near onshore. This seismic line is a simplified seismic line coming from the literature. You can see the fold associated to the thrust in the tertiary units, sand units, where the exploration, the oil and gas exploration is more interested too. And you see that below this complex geometry package, we have something which is a seismic line, which is the Akata shale. And within the Akata shale, all the people working in this domain recognize at least 3 levels, regionally speaking, that can be mapped and are characterized by high amplitude reflectors. So at the scale of the delta, those features have been mapped and are known as X, Y, and Z layer. The X layer is more or less at the top of the Akata shale. The Y layer is in the middle, I would say, around 6 seconds in the eastern lobe and a little bit deeper in the western lobe. And the zeta detachment is very deep, almost at the top of the oceanic crust. And people use those 3 reflectors are regional detachments that controls the shallow geometries, the shallow structures. Focusing in our area, this is again a map from the literature. You can recognize the western lobe and the eastern lobe. You can recognize the fact that we have in the on land and in the shallow offshore normal faults, either south dipping or north dipping. So the classical backstep geometries, and at the toe, the compression features we were talking about. And you can see that the front of the front of the deep offshore domain of the delta is not linear, but is stepped across those deep-seated transversal fault zones, like the chain in Harcourt, that I mentioned already, playing a role as inherited structures. In particular, we focus in the red, more or less in the red area here, of which I provided a map. But other people, Pitts et al. In 2020 or Jolie et al. In 2016, studied a little bit more in detail the area in light gray. This is a map from the authors, and the authors recognize the presence of huge west-northwest, east-southeast trending anticlines linked and with a short spacing and a very long axial surface. Each of those anticlines, so this seismic line is reported here. This is from Pitts et al. 2020. You can recognize the thrust, and all those thrusts for the author detached within the Akata shale. And the amount of shortening in this area has been calculated in about 27 kilometers. So it means that the shortening in this area and as estimated in the cross-section is 27 kilometers, which is quite high. Okay, and they described how the strain has been evolved through the time. So I don't go into detail, but eventually we can discuss what they interpreted for the interpretation. If we focus in our area, this is a map of a Miocene horizon. We can recognize features that are not exactly organized as in the area studied by Pitts et al. It's true that we can see the presence of west-northwest, east-southeast faults associated to thrust. But you have other anticlines like this one, for example, which is more a dome anticline. We can recognize this anticline, which is not associated to a continuous thrust. And we can recognize, for example, an anticlinorium here, which is 90 degrees with respect to the regional trend downslope of the thrust. So to repeat, we have the structures which are in trend with what we would expect at the regional scale, but we also have something which is different, 90 degrees. And we have, as you can see in the time slice, some syncline that are characterized by rounded shapes. So, for example, this syncline here correspond with this deeper zone, and you can see that is rounded, like this one. And this is not classically what you can expect in the fault related to thrust. So what is the timing of the deformation? In order to study the timing of the deformation, we did the two things. We calculated the isopath map for key horizon. So we have horizon, we converted in depth. We corrected the depth converted horizon with respect to the deeping, and we estimated some thickness for key intervals. And the area where you can have thin sedimentation, of course, suggests the area that are maybe active from a tectonic point of view. So, and we did this for Miocene horizon, but also for the growth horizon that are associated to the faults grow that I will show you after. So, for example, if you focus to this map, that is calculated between 15 and 13 million years layers, I would say. You see that again, the red means thin sedimentation, a thin package. The blue, a thick package. So you see that you cannot recognize at this stage anything with respect to the structure that we know and we have mapped. The only thing you can recognize is the presence of these anticlines here. But the rest is more related to probably to the paleogeography of the basin at this stage. But if you move, for example, between 13 and 9 million years, 9.5 million years, you start to see that, for example, all this area here that was thin, was characterized by thin sedimentation, is now characterized by thicker sedimentation. And the thin part is in the western zone. The passage between those two domains is relatively sharp and occurs across a northeast southwest oriented alignments. So it means that there should be a control of something below deep that makes this domain becoming now depocental, while before it was not depocental. It was something that was characterized by thin sedimentation. However, you cannot recognize anything else in terms of anticline. But if you move to 9.5 to 7 million years, in this interval, you can recognize all the structures we were talking about before. So you can recognize west-northwest, east-southeast anticline, here and here. You can recognize the anticlinorium, which is 90 degrees with respect to the thrust. You can recognize the structure and this anticline here. So it means that in between 9 and 7 million years, in a very short time frame, all the structures that characterize the study area formed at the same time. So in a very quick geological period. And if you move to Pliocene to Holocene time, in order to see if the growth of those anticlines, you can recognize the thrust at the front of those anticlines here, if those anticlines grew up until Holocene time. So if you do this exercise, you can recognize that you have a mild and residual growth of some of the anticline we mapped. For example, this, which corresponds to this part here, which corresponds more or less with this part of the long anticline, and this reddish trend, which corresponds with this west-northwest, east-southeast anticline here. The rest is not longer growing, and actually you can recognize the morphological features affecting the bottom sea, so deep erosive channels, meaning that at this stage, even though we have a residual growth of the below anticlines, the sedimentation is much more. Okay, yes. So I have to go quick. Apparently, the sedimentation is quite stronger with erosive features cutting the growing anticline. But I told you also that growing the anticline means that we have subsiding zone in the syncline. So if we consider the growth package within the syncline, and if we do the same exercise, you can see that we did several maps. You can still observe that the syncline growth at so accumulate more sediments during the anticline growth. So the picture is still valid and is still supported about the interpretation we have given before. So all the structure were active between 9 and 7 million years. This is important after to do some volumetric calculation that I will talk to you about. Let's speed up. However, faults and fault can be associated. You have three types of faults related to faults. The first one is the fault-bend fault. You can have a flat geometry of the trust, and you can see that this geometry controls the formation of an anticline with a backline which is parallel to the ramp, and a hinge that can grow until when the active axial surface arrives to this point, and then it cannot grow anymore in terms of amplification, but it becomes larger than the lamp. But the fact, what you have to retain is that in order to have this kind of association of the faults and the fault, you have flat, ramp, flat. Another type of fault-related faults is the fault propagation fault. So you have a flat, a ramp, and a T-point. In this model, the folding absorb and dissipate the strain associated to the thrust. It means that you can have the thrust that accumulated displacement, but at the same time, in the frontal part of the tip of the thrust, the fault amplificates more and more. And then you have the detachment faults, where you can have a detachment, so something which is rigid, limited by a detachment. And if you have a strong contrast of competencies between the two members, if you apply compression parallel to this layer, you can have the formation of a train of faults that don't affect the rigid unit below. What in our area? This is an arbitrary seismic line. Doesn't matter what the reflector are. You can recognize some reflectors. So I just mapped the geometries. I recognize this package, which is more or less isopac, meaning that all this deformation is younger than these deformed units, homogeneous in terms of thickness. I map this high amplitude reflector, and I put faults. So at the beginning, people were interpreting the fault-related fault in the Niger Delta, in the deep offshore Niger Delta, related to the presence of thrust. What I've done here, I've depicted a deep flat going to a ramp, and then an upper flat, sorry. And if I'm going to measure the displacement of the system in this cross-section, I have a deep displacement that go from here to here, which is very high, because I measure the cutoff of homologous point. However, this displacement is not recorded above. So I should need more and more compressional deformation out of the section in order to compensate this deep displacement. So in order to justify this kind of geometries, we just played in the past with kinematic models. So we applied kinematic models. We identify a low Akata and an upper Akata, and we drawn geometries with the flat and ramp geometries in the thrust and activated that several times. So we have the formation of the first, the second splay, still again, I go a little bit quick, and I obtain this. So if I compare the seismic line that you have seen before with my result in terms of kinematic model, you have something which is relatively similar in this domain. something which is relatively similar in this part, even though the aging of the faults is not respected, because in the seismic line is much younger than what I have in the model. So I will be happy in theory. But in fact, this is just an exercise, a geometrical exercise. In order to have this result, I would need to justify why in the Akata shale I have a flat and then a ramp. It means that the detachment within the Akata shale is active until this point and no longer. Why? Because I have a change of phases, or there is another reason. So I have, in order to validate this model, I should find the reason why I go to flat. I go from flat to ramp within the Akata shale, why I should apply an upper flat, and why I should activate several times with no logic, no chronological logic, different ramps in order to justify, for example, this out of sequence thrust. So that is just an exercise, it doesn't mean that's the reality. And in fact, in 2009, Simpson did at a very large scale in the Jura Mountains in France, several numerical experiments using a thick or a thin decollement layers, above which you have a rigid units, and try to understand why and when, if I have thin or thick decollement layers, which is ductile, and if above this I have rigid units, if I apply a regional compression, when I have just folding, what kind of folds I have, and when I have thrust. And as results of this modeling, Simpson proposed the fact that if I can have folding, this harmonic folding at regional scale, when the decollement is very thick with respect to the rigid units, and especially when the decollement are low viscosity. If these boundary conditions are not respected, I cannot have folding as main mechanism, but I have thrusting. Okay, and what you also can see here is that the base of the rigid unit is here in this point, but is below in this point here. So it means that a regional level, if I apply compression, regional compression in a model where a thick decollement layers is active, I have down building synclines with associated sedimentation in the syncline actually. I have down building down building syncline, down building effect related to the deformation in the rigid units, and you can see that this, what we call the regional level, is not always respected. This is very different with respect to what we have in kinematic model. In kinematic model, where you have thrust and fold associated to thrust, the regional level needs to be the same. And it is not the case in our experiment. So it means that we cannot apply the kinematic model as we have seen before. So if we observe now this cross-section, this seismic line, we do another small exercise. So I go to interpret what is deep, and I'm going to identify some discontinuities affecting this high amplitude reflector, a little bit discontinuous. Then I do a line drawing in the shallow units. And you see that this guy here stops somewhere here and can be observed somewhere here. So I try to do something like that, and then I put faults. So you can see that the faults are associated to the fold, but they touch a different layer, a different level. So for example, this fault arrives here. This fault arrives here, cannot be connected down. And so if this is a detachment level, in order to fold this detachment, I need a deeper detachment that I identify at this level here. But what I put here in the core of the anticline, either deformation or something else. So if we zoom a little bit, this is the same line. In this area, for example, which is here, if we do a line drawing, we have something which is enlarging. So we have those reflectors that go down and those reflectors that go up. If we have this geometry, we should assume that in between the upper and the deeper horizon, we have to put a detachment. So here we have a detachment. If you observe this area here, we have the faults and we have the detachment which is faulted. If we go to see this zone, we have the same geometry. So we have something that goes up here and something that is flat. So we have a detachment in this zone. So we have, at least in this area, in this cross-section, two detachments. One is shallow and one is deep, and the deep one is younger than the shallow one, which is folded. So in order to justify the role of the detachments and how they affect the shortening in this area, we did several cross sections. That's for S1 to S10. That is quite interesting. You can see faults, syncline, faults associated to thrust here, and in the footwall of the thrust you have other anticline. For example, look at here. This anticline is affected by thrust, and then you have a series of anticline and syncline in the footwall of the thrust. So those thrusts cannot go from shallow to deep. So they detach within the Akata shale. And the X reflector, the one that is called X reflector at the near top of the Akata shale, which is here, is faulted. But within the Akata shale, we have also the Y and the Z reflectors. And if you observe the deformation that affects those reflectors, those high amplitude events, you see that those are faulted as well, or folded, like here. So in the same line, we have a contrasting timing if we want to assume that all those are the detachments, because the detachments are either faulted or folded in a very short area, a very small area. So we think that we cannot consider those reflector as detachment because we have contrasting timing, and in addition, all the deformation we know is occurred between in a short time span between 9.5 and 7.5 million years. So we cannot have different detachments regionally formed that configure and that can have that can be sometimes folded like here and sometimes folded. So it means that for us, those features that are never been drilled because all the wells die in the shallow section, those can be stringers within the shales. Stringers within the Akata shales with different deformation. Why? Because the shales play a role, and the faults that are recorded in shallow section are not fault-related faulted sensu stricto like foreseen by kinematic models, but are detachment faults related to the flow of the shales. So if we have shales, structures like the salt structures, we have mini basins, down-throwing domains. We cannot, and we have 3D flow. So we cannot balance and deform the deformation that is the shale. So we try to just analyze the deformation that we have in the more rigid units. And if we do this for two cross-section, we obtain something which is more or less coincident, is 3.5 kilometers of shortening. So in our area, the shortening, considering a line length method for the Agbada formation, is 3 kilometers, which is much less of the 27 kilometers seen by the other authors. And why is it so short? Because the rest of the deformation is absorbed by the flow, 3D flow of the shales. So if the shale flow means that those anticline are associated with detachment, local detachment, not regional detachment. And in fact, we can observe this if we analyze what is a detachment fault. A detachment fault is a fault that formed above the regional level. So you have an over-thickening in the core of the anticline that is associated with the shortening. So if we know the shortening, because we can measure the shortening for each layer that we have in each anticline, we can calculate the knowing the area of the thickness of the Akata shale, we can detect the depth of the detachment associated with these detachment faults. So if we do this exercise for each layer that we have in each anticline, we have a diagram like this. So we have the regional layers for each geological horizon, and we can plot layer excess area, obtaining for each anticline a specific trend. And you can see that those trends refers to the different anticline that we have in our area. And you can see that all of them are different. So this means that all the anticlines that we map in our area cannot be referred to the activation of a single regional detachment, but a series of local detachments at different depths. And this is in agreement with what has been seen in numerical model by other authors. So, for example, this is a mechanical modeling done by Dean et al. In 2015, where people modelized the deformation within the Akata shale, which is the gray volume here, on top of which they put something rigid, and then they simulated the sedimentation of the depth. So what they obtained? They obtained first an over force detaching in the Akata shales, so similar what we had in the numerical model, in the analog model that you have seen in the first slides, and going forward in the experiment, they have so more and more normal faults and thrust that detaches at the same level. But you can see at the end of the experiment that you have several thrusts and several normal faults linked. However, they don't link along a single detachment. The compression, the extensional deformation, and the compressional strain are dissipated and distributed all within the entire volume occupied by the ductile Akata shales. So it means that the compression in the interland is not balanced mechanically by the compression. Why? Because part is absorbed by the compressional strain, but the rest is absorbed by, for example, pore reduction in the Akata shale or other subseismic deformation ductile in the Akata shale. So this is a sort of confirmation of the fact that you cannot have a single specific regional detachment levels within the Akata shale, so the X, Y, and the Z reflectors, but you can have a smoother and distributed volume deformed with the shales that flow from syncline to anticline and that accommodate the compressional strain in the syncline, in the anticline. So if we do the same exercise we have seen before, so this is the almost isopac units, faulted, you see this unit, the Akata shale, is constant in thickness. The question I was raised before is that if this is a detachment and if is a detachment folded, what we put here? And actually we put deformed shales flowing from syncline to anticline, to the anticline core. However, since in this specific seismic line, the thickness of the Akata shale remain constant, it means that this anticline core is filled by out of section flowing shales, not from here or here, because the thickness is constant. If the flow was from this point to this point, we would have expected a thinning section of the shales up to a weld, because the shales flow like salt. So in concrete, we have if we observe what we can have in this in the anticline is that the deformation can be complex, because you can have thrust that detaches at shallow level and the reflectors that are very deformed, and this deformation is embedded within a ductile media that behave in a ductile way and flows. What we have if we move in a completely different geological domain? This is the Andes, this is the Bolivia subandean domain. This is a regional map of the area that is highlighted here in purple, I would say. And we were focusing in total along this long anticline. You see that in this domain, in this area, you recognize huge 100 kilometers long and tight anticlines overlapping, sometimes linked. And we were focusing on the Inkawasi anticline, which is here. Okay. So if we highlighted zoom on this area, we have this. In particular, we were interested to see what is the deformation in the core of this long anticline, which is in Inkawasi. And we drilled several wells, a battery of 5 wells up to when I worked in the area. And so the cross-section because the seismic is very poor, the cross-section were built thanks to the tadpole acquired during the drill. So all those cross-sections that you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, are here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have a shallow section, which is rigid, which we have then two formations, that is Ikiri and Los Monos, that are ductile. And then we have two rigid bodies that are the reservoir we are interested to, the Huamanpampa, the lower Devonian, Huamanpampa and Santa Rosa. And those units are embedded within ductile units. So if we are going to compress this stratigraphy, what is the result? Is that the Los Monos becomes 300% thicker than what we expected stratigraphically speaking. So you see, for example, that if we drill the core of the anticline here, we don't find anything in terms of reservoir. The reservoir is completely decoupled. And you can see that the reservoir, which is this one, for example, if you compare the geometry of the reservoir scale that you can have in this section, in this section, in this section, and in this section, is completely different. So this is just to say that because the flow of the Los Monos units from syncline to anticline, you have a thick core of an anticline that completely detach the deformation from shallow to deep level. And in the Huamanpampa, the structure and the deformation you can observe are very complex and very different what you expect at the scale of the surface anticline. And this is something that you can have in the Niger Delta as well, because if you remember the deformation that you have at the X or Z reflectors that can mimic a little bit the rigid behavior of this reservoir, but in some anticline you can have those reflectors, those stringers actually are very complex in terms of deformation, much more complex than what you can see in the Agbada formation. So that is what I was trying to say is that if we observe the shallow anticline in the Niger Delta is quite, in brackets, simple, but if you go in the core, the deformation becomes much more complex, like we have seen in the Inkawasi. And this is just because those stringers are embedded by flowing units that makes the deformation quite complex and quite different what you expect in the shallow forms. So since we say that the shale flows in 3D from syncline to anticline, since the shale flowing is like the source, we did just an exercise. We identified a domain, closed domain, drainage divide actually, starting from which the volumes of the syntectonic units that you have seen before, cooled or not, balance in terms of mass, in terms of volumes, the over-thickening of the core of the anticlines. This means that if this anticline is growing and is controlling the deposition of the growing units in the associated syncline, this anticline is also growing because we have flow of shales in its core. So if we identify a regional level for the anticline, we can estimate the volumes in the core of the anticline, and we can compare this volume with the associated volume in the syncline. If there is a good balance, means that the process the reasoning is okay, the interpretation is okay. And if we do this, calculating the volumes for each domain, we have a difference. We found a difference between the over-thickening core for each of those anticline and the growth units in the syncline, which is in the order of 14%, so which is good. What is the role of the active tectonic area and the role of the deep-seated units? If we focus in our area, you see that there is a chain of active deformation that goes from northeast southwest and is characterized by active faults. But those active faults have nothing to do with the faults that we have mapped. Okay, are 90 degrees, and actually the age of those faults varies within the same structure. So there are a belt of northeast southwest oriented active faults that are 90 degrees with respect to the faults and that form and that have a different time. So if we are going to upscale this kind of deformation, we know that we have the Charcot and chain transversal fault zone that controls the thickness of the Akata shale. Actually, that's I talked about this at the beginning of the presentation. This is quite similar what we have in this area, so somewhere here. Okay, and if we compare this interpretation with the horizontal gradient of the gravity map and also with magnetic map, you can recognize the presence of similar trend parallel to this one and parallel to the chain and Charcot fault zone that justify the fact that in this area you have a deep-seated fault. You could have a deep-seated fault that controls behave as a buttress during the formation of the Akata shale, and then controls the deformation and the timing. So the anticlinorium, which is 90 degrees with respect to the regional faults, could be justified by the fact that in here you have a deep-seated fault that even controls the active deformation that affects the formation of the anticlinorium oriented northeast southwest. So what is the very regionally speaking, what is the implication of this? Is that this is the Niger Delta, just rotated. Okay, so we have the west and the eastern lobe. This is the western lobe and the eastern lobe. This comes from the literature, and this is the Charcot fault zone. You can see that the trend, so the direction of spreading of the two lobes are different. So you have a sort of radial extension with a vector that is quite different, and you can see that the front of the delta is not homogeneous and is affected and controlled by those transversal fault zones. So this means that the splitting rate of the western lobe, the eastern lobe is not the same. Actually, the western lobe is splitting much quicker. This means that in terms of exploration, we have in the western lobe much more risk of seed integrity because those deep-seated faults that controls the entire lobe splitting faster could break the structure and could be associated to shallow structure, even active structure that can leak. So the risk of exploring very large scale, the risk of exploring the western lobe and the eastern lobe is not the same. But if we observe each of the petroleum system parameters one per one, we know that the source rock is not another problem in the delta because I mean we cannot exclude, but the source rock deeper than the delta infill as much are quite unlucky. So in classical delta units, then the source rock is within the delta and it works. However, one of the main, as I told you before, the main risk in the Niger Delta is the seal. Because we have shale deformation, we have shale pipe and mud pipe that can break the seal, and so the top seal, but also the lateral seal, has been identified like the main risk factor in exploring the structures that are related to the shale flow. However, there are other authors like Kostenko that doesn't believe to this problem for the sea. For Kostenko, that proposed some work on the alpha well of shale. For him, there is a flow which is homogeneously within the shale, within the delta, and doesn't vary from interland to the foreland, from on land to the deep offshore. For him, in fact, the main problem is not only the seal, but is mainly related to the fact that most of the structure, especially in the deep offshore, are not properly located with respect to the drainage path. So the path between the source and the accumulation. So if you don't have a structure which is in a good position with respect to the timing and the path, the infill of the structure is poor. So you can have downfield structure, and if you have several reservoirs, you end up with a deep reservoir which are much underfilled with respect to the shallow ones. And this is not because this is associated. Kostenko showed the example of the alpha structure and proposed that actually is not a matter of having the capability of the trust of keeping a high column of hydrocarbons, but again, it's just a matter of being in the good drainage path. Another point that we can take into account when we do the study of the deformation is the in the Niger Delta is the overpressure. We observe that tight structure with late timing can be associated with overpressure, and we know that overpressure can be also associated with a tilted hydrocarbon contact, tilted fluid contact, which is indicative of active hydrocarbon regime active in the area that we have to work, and we know this for some structure that we deal with. So we have, I needed to go very, very quick, so I'm so sorry to speed up. We have seen several structure style. We have seen how the deformation, the interpretation of the deformation has evolved through the time in the Niger Delta, and we have ended up with the timing of the deformation, the style in the area of interest, and with some conclusion at the regional scale and at the more prospect scale related to the risk of the sea integrity and overpressure within the reservoir. Thank you very much.
Much. Hello.
Yes.
We can hear you, Prof. We can hear you, Prof. Go ahead.
It's okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Spina, for this wonderful presentation. You've been able to put us through the deformation timing and its implication for Niger Delta offshore hydrocarbon. Thank you very much. So at this point, I would like to know if you have any question from the audience. If you're on call, please, you can indicate by raising your hands up. We give you time to speak, as well as question coming from the audience as well. Okay. Dr. Magnus Kanu, please go ahead. Dr. Magnus, you can go ahead, sir.
Excellent stuff. Excellent presentation, Dr. Spina. We recognize that it's quite a lot of information to unload in such a short space of time, but we deeply appreciate the mastery, you exhibited in trying to communicate the message. I have a little question. I see that you typically use the kinematic model in conjunction with seismic data, to really have a full grasp of this deformation structural styles, especially in the Akata area, where again most likely the quality of seismic data that you have is not optimal. But I wonder how this model, how robust it is, so that it doesn't actually mislead. So I'm actually going to ask you, in lieu of seismic data or proper imaging at such depths, what percentage certainty would you put on the kinematic model as a proxy for understanding and defining the deformation, structural deformation in those areas? Because this fits into your exploration activities, right? So that's my question.
Okay, in fact, maybe I was not completely clear. I said that the kinematic model was used at the very beginning of the studies. So when people started to study, they straight away applied the kinematic modeling. But in fact, with a more comprehensive understanding of how the formation evolves through the time, we more think that a pure kinematic model cannot be applied strictly.
Wow, thank you.
Because you don't have.
Yeah.
Because you don't
have
I
must have missed
the
that
class.
line. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Back to you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Hello. Mr. Muiwa Lawoki, please, can you go ahead? Mr. Muiwa, can you go ahead? You can go ahead, Mr. Muiwa. Unmute yourself and go ahead. Unmute and go ahead.
Can you hear me now? I unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay. Let's get to slide 36. Slide 36. If we get to slide 36.
Dr. Spina, you want slide 36?
Yeah, slide 36. Great.
One more, okay.
Great. On this slide, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but as the shell sort of buckles, where there's the red arrow going up, or almost right there, you expect that so-called high to be a shell-prone high as the system begins to evolve, and then at a point in time you may get to the sea floor. Will you expect a sort of the hard ground in some of those sharp reflectors that look like they're something, but they may actually be hard grounds, or they may be hard grounds within a shale-prone high? And then the reservoir will be a big risk. What will you have to say, Dr. Spina?
I think that these are amplitude reflectors that to me are more stringers, so something more rigid with respect to the embedding shales, could be high pressure objects, and however are disconnected, could be disconnected from the reservoir, except if you don't have a connection via faults. So if you have faults that cut either for example, either here and here, you can have conducts of pressure across along the fault. But if your faults detaches very shallow, and if the deformation affecting those stringers is intense but is lower, you cannot, you hardly transfer the pressure from here to here.
Yeah, then you breach the seal. You probably breach the seal at that point.
If you are able to connect via fault those events, yes, you can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm equally thinking about challenges of maybe you have to actually trust a sort of a slope sand into a structural position to think about reservoir there, and then overpressure can come and breach this reservoir with fault, with the subsequent fault. Would that be what you would think?
This is a classical view in order to justify the fact that if you have a stacked reservoir, you often have in the deep offshore Niger Delta deep reservoir which are downfilled, and the shallow reservoir which are overfilled until down to the structural closure, because people believe that the reservoir are leaking along the fault. So you have hydrocarbon migration and filling of the deep reservoir. Once the pressure point, the pressure rotation point of the fault is breached, you have migration, and so on and so on and so on.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Oluwoke, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Dr. Spina, somebody is asking, how extensive is this regional work in terms of length and breadth? Is it beyond 40 kilometers in length?
Sorry, what is the question? How extended is what?
How extensive is the regional work in terms of length and breadth? Like, is it beyond 40 kilometers in length?
Is covering the area where we have seismic data.
Okay, oh, the entire seismic data?
No, the area of where we have assets.
Assets, okay. It's okay. Dr. Muyiwa, your hand is still up. Any further question?
Oh, no, I'm gone.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, we don't have any question online. Thank you, Dr. Spina. That's a wonderful presentation.
Thank you
might
for
have to
attending.
maybe we might have to schedule you to do something during the conference for us, because I can see the extent of work you've done. Maybe we need more time to see it and people can ask questions.
Okay.
Thank you. I go back to the.
EOD, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can we have him organize a sort of a school, structural school, for 1 or 2 days, hands-on? I mean, I'm sure that's the way we don't really have a lot of structural presentations. And pardon me if I'm wrong. We've not had a lot of structural geology presentations in our NAPI. I don't know if Dr. Spina can organize about 1 or 2 day hands-on structural school.
We'll discuss that. We'll discuss that with the company. You know, it's coming from the company, so we'll discuss with the company rep.
All right.
And get something done.
All right.
We have for this year's pre-conference, we have a course on structural geology that will be taken by Mr. Lawal from Chevron. Yeah, so the flyers are out. Structural geology, hands-on practical applications and things along that line, as suggested by Mr. Dr. Muyiwa. So we already have a course. So please, the flyers are out. Let's take advantage of that. It's equally going to be very, very interesting. For 2024, we can bring in Vincenzo as well for a follow-up structural course during the summer school. We had some discussions with him earlier in summer, but we decided to move it to the monthly technical meeting. But for 2023, we have a structural program structural course as part of the pre-conference. So please, let's take advantage of that. It's going to be very, very interesting. For 2024, we can have a follow-up at summer school still on structural geology. Thank you very much.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Madu Abuchi Ogu, you can go ahead. Dr. Ogu, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me? Confirm you can hear me, please.
Good afternoon. We can hear, but you can increase the volume a little bit.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Professor Spina. I also want to throw more light on the structural school because I'm very, very much interested. I'm actually a master's student to the Center of Excellence. So I'm particular about structural geology. Now, when I joined this call, I saw that the prof had a log, and based on my information, I don't know if the entire Akata formation has been drilled up through, because I could see 2 other lithologies. I can't remember the name of that log, so I wanted to confirm if there's actually a work that has been done, let's say by Total or any other company, that has breached the entire Akata formation, so we can estimate the actual depth or thickness of the Akata formation. And secondly, looking at the slide 36, I want to understand that coming from the eastern side is the compressional, and coming from the western part is our extensional area. So my question now is, this area that we are focused on, especially where we have the arrow, is meant to be the paralic region. So in that case, is it also possible for us to have some kind of shale diaper there rather than a complex fault system? That's my question. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, Dr. Spina, can you respond to that?
Yes, not so sure to have fully understood all the questions, but concerning the Akata shale, there are not wells, at my knowledge, that have drilled completely the Akata shale itself. So all the wells are in the yellow package that are in the seismic. For the thickness of the Akata shale, however, there are it's known since 2005. There are very regional seismic line that has been used, converted, and that has been used in order to calculate the thickness and the variation of the thickness itself, because the thickness varies either from onshore to deep offshore, but also across the basin itself, parallel to the margin of the basin, because you have the deep-seated faults that creates depot centers across which you have a thickness variation. So the variation is the thickness is known, and the variation regionally is known as well for the Akata shale. The second question, I am not so sure to have understood the question. If can be repeated, please.
Okay, so let me repeat. I said, looking at this scale, that's this
Yes.
slide 36.
Yes,
Coming
yes.
from the eastern side, we have a lot of faulting activities there. So that is the compressional area. While on the eastern part, on the western part, we have less faulting system in that area. So that is an extensional area. So looking at the arrow, where we have your arrow there, from my knowledge, Madam, you can still throw more light on that. From my knowledge, I want to believe that we are supposed to have something like a diaper within that region. So why do you think it's a multi-complex fault system rather than a diaper? Because if you look towards the eastern side, that's before the anticline, you see that you have a syncline, and your syncline is still within your more or less above your rift. Yeah, above, yeah, that's like a post rift system. But it doesn't go below the pre-rift, rather. It doesn't go below it. And neither does it cut across the fault or down through the fault towards the Akata formation. So it's still within that region. So why do you think that that region where you have your arrow is going to be a multi-complex fault system rather than a diaper?
Okay, the western part of the seismic line is not extension, is characterized by thrust. Okay, a fold and thrust. For the part where you have the arrow, it's true that you can have some seismic faults, you can have fault, but however, the faults itself for the nature of the faults account for a non-homogeneous strain. So it means that the strain is clustering along the fault. In this case, we are dealing with a globally homogeneous unit, which is ductile and which is the Akata shale. So there is not, even though you can have thrust within the core of the anticline, however, is more ductile, the deformation. So is not. I'm not talking about a diaper. This is not a diaper. Is a pillow, a sort of pillow of shale flowing from outside the line. In fact, if you consider the base of the yellow isopac units, which is here, is not corresponding with what you have here. So it means that you can have a differential subsidence from this incline to this area, and this can always be accounted by flow, not by thrust, because in addition, if you put here thrust only here, why I should go from a detachment here to a series of stacked thrust in this domain, and then nothing here, where you can have the same reflector, purple reflector at the same depth of this. So what should drive the clustering of an hyper tightening related to rigid behavior of units here, where I don't have rigid behavior here or here. And then you can see, and then you can see you need to see this in 3D, not only in a line.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Spina. Can Dr. Maduawa, your hand is up. Can you ask a question? After that, Dr. Adishida. Please unmute yourself and ask a question, please.
Yes, confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. Mine is to thank Dr. Spina. Dr. Spina, I remember when you presented in Lagos, I told you I would join you in Port Harcourt, and you also did an excellent job. I want to speak on the structural courses as Dr. Lowercase requested, and special thanks to AEIC, Dr. Moedo, for the response. I think from NAPE ESCOs, I want to encourage our members not only to be attending their chapters technical business meetings alone. Every month, basically all the 6 chapters we have in NAPE organizes technical business meeting, and our chapter coordinators are really working hard on that to get, verifiable studies for us to learn from. So I want to encourage us to be attending it, because some of other chapters have been dealing on the structural geology topics that are very vital and valuable for our technical growth. That being said, I also want to join my voice to lean my voice on Amoyodo's call for pre-conference training and workshops that will be coming up very soon in November. Please do well to take advantage of this. It will help us a lot as individuals and as associations together. Thank you very much, EIC, for good job.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dishida.
Yes, thanks, EIC.
Can unmute and speak here.
Hello, can you hear me? Please confirm.
Yeah, we can.
Hear. All right, thanks so much, EIC. And thanks, Dr. Spina, for a very great presentation. Excellent. I have 2 questions. The first one is on the reactivated deep-seated structures, right? And so we see some of those oblique faults, not only in deep water offshore, we also see them in the shallow offshore. And then the question is, if they are reactivated now and we also see their expression, are we then saying that some of the structures that we see today are basement controlled, right? Against structures that we think are mainly just the sedimentary cover that we have that are controlling those structures. So that's the first one. The second one is about the detachment levels that we, or the Coleman levels that we have. So during the presentation, you mentioned that probably there are various detachment levels, right? So is it only within the Akata then, or do we have some within the shallower sections? Thanks.
So for the deep-seated faults, so the basement faults, that is good. I mean, we do agree that there is a control of deep-seated faults. Control doesn't mean that you have a fault cutting through the entire sedimentary pile, but the control can be related to buttress effect and the transpiration of the deformation, even at a subseismic scale. So, I mean, we are in line and it exists. The second question is related to the detachment. So you can have shallow detachment, but above the yellow. Why? Because the yellow in the seismic section, you have a yellow unit package, I would say. This is more or less isopac and this is more rigid. So in these rigid units, you don't expect huge and frequent detachment. You can have some detachment in the above unit, the growth unit, in the shale interval, but again, it's something limited. Okay. On the other hand, the major of the detachment are within the Akata shale because that is the engine of the system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adishla. Mr. Emeka, or Dr. Emeka is there now. This can go ahead.
Okay.
That will be the last question for the day.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Spina. Just 2 questions. One is for your shallower detachment, what exactly is creating that detachment level? Okay, that's shallower detachment. What is responsible for the formation of the second detachment?
Sorry, you are talking about the shallow detachment within the Akata shale, you mean?
Yes, you have a deeper detachment close to the basement, right? Which is what we call the regional detachment. Now you have a shallower detachment. What is giving rise? What is creating that second detachment? Then the second question is, you did mention when you are talking about timing, that the deeper detachment, activity on the deeper detachment is younger than that of the shallower detachment. But if I look at that your rigid unit, you colored in yellow, and I look at the thrust fault, okay, the ones to the west go all the way to the deeper detachment, right? And then the ones to the east detach at a shallower level. So don't quite get that explanation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emeka.
I'm not 100% to have fully understood all the questions because
That's the last question, Dr. Spina. That's the last question.
Yes, I mean, I'm not so sure to have fully understood everything because the connection is not the voice was not very clear. However, the shallow, middle, and deep detachment, the fact that those levels are detachment, considered as a detachment at regional level is not me, is what is known at the regional scale. So it's called X, Y, and Z. For me, those are not detachment. When I'm talking about shallow detachment, I'm more talking about, for example, here, okay? You can have the so-called X detachment, which is faulted. So you have this thrust that goes below this reflector, this shallow reflector that is considered as an X detachment and is folded. So people believe that this and this are regional detachment all within the entire Niger Delta. However, we see that you have chronological inconsistencies to consider active all those three detachments in a very short time span. I mean, it's very difficult to have such huge detachments that are active in a very short time span. And in addition, if this is a detachment, that is folded. And in order to fold this, you should look for something below, that is this, or even this, which is actually flat. So this, if we talk about regional detachment, this should be the youngest detachment because it's just not folded, not deformed. However, I don't believe that you have such detachments all active at the same time all along the Niger Delta. You can have local detachment, for example, here, as seen in the. Let me see if okay. In this domain here, we are in the flank of this anticlinorium. You see that the reflectors are diverging. So in between the reflector, you should put a detachment, but doesn't mean that this detachment is active within the entire Niger Delta. Is acting only in the flank of this anticlinorium. If we zoom here, we have again deflection of the reflectors. So in here, I should assume that there is a detachment, an active detachment, but it doesn't mean that this is everywhere. So the fact that you have different detachments at different stratigraphic level with different deformations, because here is folded and faulted, here is faulted, this is not deformed, is incompatible with the fact that you have a very short deformation phase between 9 and 7 million years.
Okay, Dr. Spina, thank you very much. Because of time constraint, maybe if there's any other question, we'll forward it to Amoyedo. He can get across to you and get something done for that. Thank you very much. We're very grateful for this presentation. It's been really wonderful, really captivating, and a lot of people have things to ask, especially when it comes to structural geology. Thank you very much. At this point, I'll call back the Protocol GS to continue for other announcements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, my prof, for moderating that wonderful presentation by Dr. Spina. All right. Without much ado, because I can see it's actually lunchtime and many people are, signaling that they need to take a break. So I would like to invite our sponsor, Mr. Mahmoud, for the sponsor's remark. If we can as well take up the announcement.
Sorry,
Mr. Mahmoud
sorry for the interjection, is Mr. Michael Chukuma, who is going to take the sponsor's remark, and he's here.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. Mr. Mahmoud is equally from the sponsored company, that Total. So, Mr. Michael, please, if you're here, please go ahead. Sorry for that mission.
No, it's fine. Momodu can take it. Momodu, please go ahead. It's fine for me. Thanks, everyone.
Mike, all right. I think you're a better place to doing that. But since we are doing one synergy, so I'll make it very brief. So I'll take also the announcements together on behalf of NAPI. So I think we, as a company, Total, is very proud to have hosted this talk. Thank you so much, my friend and colleague, Dr. Vincenzo, for what you have just presented twice. So thank you so much. We appreciate that. And I think you have been elevated now to a professor. I heard one of the speakers call you a professor. So you have gotten an honorary title, beyond what you have technically. So on behalf of Total, we want to say thank you very much to NAPI for this opportunity. And also to say that Total is, as you know, is now TotalEnergies. And we are very much involved, not only in the oil and gas industry, we are also involved in the downstream, as well as in other new energies that are coming up here and there. So we've broadened our scopes, just as many other companies are doing as well. So that just be on a brief note, and just to say thank you once again for the opportunity given to us to present and to sponsor this technical meeting, both in Lagos and in Port Harcourt. So maybe we'll just quickly take the announcements now together. So 1 or 2 minutes, everybody. We know that we are pressed for time. Just give us 2 minutes to read out a few announcements and then we close. So I don't know if I can share my screen very quickly. I'll just set that right now. Yes. All right. I believe you can all see my screen. So if you can, that's great. So I'll make it very quick, just to give us a few announcements, and then my other colleagues will take over from there. So we've listened to the presentation from Mr. and Dr. Spina. Thank you very much. Just as one of the speakers did say, there are opportunities for us to take in many other meetings from our different chapters of NAPI. So do not stay fixed on your chapter alone, because you want to grow wealth of knowledge and connection. So take advantage of other technical meetings that NAPI holds. So there's one happening from the Abuja chapter, and you have an ability to follow it via Zoom. So why don't you register and listen to this topic? I, for one, will listen to this because it's an area of my specialty. So I'll be interested in this, and it holds just exactly 1 week from today. So the big one is coming up, the NAPI annual conference from the 12th to the 16th of November, repositioning the oil and gas industry for future energy dynamics. You can't afford to miss this one. So what you need to do, you need to register at the website for more details. All right. So for those who also wish to exhibit, there are spaces available. You can reach out as quickly as possible. The deadline for subscription is on the 3rd of November. So if your company wants to exhibit, take advantage, reach out to the NAPI office, and you will get all the required information that you need. As part of that conference, there will be a luncheon. You can see the faces of the people present here, and they are named some that I do know, experience. So take advantage of this during the annual NAPI conference. Now, there was a big emphasis on short courses, and I also lend my voice to it. Take advantage of these short courses. They are very interesting courses, as Dr. Sunday said, and also one of the other speakers did say. I mean, my colleague is only going to present here as well. He's very passionate, Dr. Ola. He's taking the first course. And I took note of the last course. The name of the person is Dr. Aikolola, Understanding. So you want understanding. Come on, guys. Register for these short courses from the 11th to 12th of November. And I'm sure you will learn a lot and grow in your career. Then always remember, NAPI works by membership as well. So if you aren't a member yet, this is your chance. 2,000 Naira for students member. That's like the data you spend in a week or even in a single day. Why don't you register as a student? or become an active member and grow to an associate member. Likewise, you can also be a corporate member with all the fees there. If you want to register and pay your dues, please call the office. There's a wonderful lady there, but her name is Abby. She's very helpful. She can help you with any process that you need. So the contact number is also there if you want to register. Then we call on all others to take advantage to sponsor, our monthly technical meetings. It's open to everyone. You can meet the president-elect. You can meet the secretariat for more information. And yes, for our own chapter in Port Harcourt, we really make an appeal to all of you companies to please put your hands together, put your support here like has been done today by TotalEnergies, and support greatly the Port Harcourt chapter. It's a live center of NAPI. It's a historical center for NAPI. We would like to see more sponsorship from the companies, has been done today. So we look forward to your sponsorship. Reach out to us, reach out to the admin, and they'll give you more and more details. Now, this is on medicals. If you're interested in the HMO package that is in partnership with NAPI, you can reach out again to the NAPI Secretariat for more information. There is voting ongoing at the moment for the 2023-24 elections. I'm going a little bit faster now. So it ends on the 15th of October in about 11 days. So if you haven't voted, it's only open to members of NAPI. If you haven't voted, this is your chance to vote. There are several candidates. I can just see some on the slide here. We have one here for the president-elect. We have for the vice president as well. Several candidates in different capacities, but it's up to you to make your own choices for your candidates. And then let's make NAPI a better and a stronger place. So this is the timeline for the elections, which is almost concluding. So that's a wrap up on the announcements very quickly, but I believe you have retained the valuable information. So I hand over back now, I think, to our GS for our boss at the head of the chapter for the closing remarks. All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mahmoud, for those announcements. We do appreciate your intervention. Quickly, I would like to invite Mr. Emo to help us with the closing remarks, after which we call it a day. Thank you very much.
Before that, please, guys, apologies for also interjecting again. A few persons I cannot forgive myself if I'm not able to mention them here. And such an honor to have the National Secretary of NAPI, connecting Dr. Emmanuel Madua. Thanks for joining us today. And also my friend, the National Publicity Secretary of NMGS is here. We have also some corporate bodies who are here, mentioned earlier at the start, a couple at the start, and a few more. CPG IPS, an affiliate at Uniport, they're also here. And Trenchmark Services Limited. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you're going to look forward to more sessions. And if you were able to, you participated in a cluster mode, you joined someone else on a device, we'll be more than happy to know you participated. Thank you very much. Back to you, GS, as you call on Dr. Emo to conclude.
All right. Thank you very much, my coordinator. It's always a pleasure to have you direct the Mr. Emo, if you're on call, please go ahead and give us your closing remarks.
Yes, a lot have been said, and all I can add is well done, every one of us. We have our NAPI to project and to protect and to promote. On that note, I want to appreciate Total, who has been there for us since I personally became secretary in 2006 till date. I want to say thank you. Thank you to every one of us. We have long gone past break time, and a lot of us are still here. I want to believe that at the next opportunity, we'll make use of it. And indeed, as calls have gone out to us all, corporately, let's make NAPI big in Port Harcourt and in turn, the entire nation. Thank you. God bless you all. Do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.